Hello, everyone. I'm Steve McMullin. I'm the Sheldon and Marjorie Fountain Professor of Evangelism and Mission at Acadia Divinity College in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. And I have the privilege today of talking to you about how to incorporate hospitality in our Christian mission. I think that we are living in very interesting times. First of all, because in many ways, people have stopped inviting other people to their homes. Our homes have become much more private than they were in previous generations. And secondly, we live in a time when a lot of people are moving to our country, to our neighborhoods. Some of them are just from other parts of Canada. Some of them have come from all over the world. And that means that there are a number of cultural or ethnic barriers sometimes between us and the people that we're seeking to reach out to. And yet, hospitality is one of the main ways, and I would say biblical ways, in which we can cross some of those cultural and ethnic barriers. So let's talk a bit about hospitality and how we can incorporate it into the life of the church in order to be effective in sharing the good news of Jesus. Let's think, first of all, biblically. We often think about Jesus and the crowds that came to him and the various people that he ministered to. Then we think of the New Testament church and the way in which it spread so quickly. But how often do we notice that food, that meals, that being together in one another's homes are centrally to the way in which the gospel was shared and spread? In Jesus' own ministry, there were times when he was able to bridge barriers between himself and, for example, tax collectors, or even some of the Pharisees. So he built bridges as he came to people's homes for meals, as he said to Zacchaeus up on the tree, "I'm going to your house for supper tonight." So these are ways in which he built bridges. Think about Peter going to Cornelius's house. And not only did he go and meet with the Cornelius's family and household, his friends, but also he stayed and ate a meal with them. In fact, that was what the church folks really noticed when Peter returned, because they realized that sharing in a meal is a sign really of friendship. It's a sign of more than just being a preacher in someone's midst. And so it is today that when we invite someone to our home, when we share a meal with people, it is a sign that we seek more than just a casual acquaintance, that in fact we want to share friendship beyond whatever human boundaries may have been put up. I think it's important, though, because I think some churches think, well, okay, we'll start a hospitality program. And I guess I would suggest that hospitality is not hospitality if it's a program. If hospitality is simply something that's been organized and people are doing because it's their duty, then it's really not going to work. Hospitality works because it isn't a program. It's a way in which we, in our homes, reach out to other people, whether it's our next door neighbors or whether it's people who have moved to Canada from other parts of the world. I think that in many of our churches, we have tried ways to share with people who, for example, maybe people who don't have enough food, or we've tried to share with students in some of our churches. A lot of churches will have high school students in for a craft dinner meal or something. And those, again, are great opportunities as long as we see that more than the meal is needed. Then, in fact, as people sit down to share a meal, it's an opportunity for us as Christians to sit down with them and to get to know them, and maybe more importantly, help them to get to know us, so that we can begin sharing from our lives and helping them to see the ways in which Jesus makes a difference for us. So, with hospitality, I think, first of all, we need to begin with some preparation in terms of our own attitudes. Hospitality is not about us doing something good for someone else. It's not about us and them. Hospitality is a gift that flows in both directions. So yes, we may be inviting people to our home so we can share a meal with them, but in them coming to our home, they're going to share something of their lives with us. We're going to learn from them. So it's not a matter of one person serving someone else. If that's the way we think of it, then it's not going to work. Hospitality does not work when one group is serving another group. Instead, it's when we come and share together in a variety of ways. I would say also that it's important that hospitality is not about me and it's not about you. Hospitality is not my ministry. It's not going to be your ministry. We have to get that kind of thinking out of our mind. Hospitality is about the witness of the whole church. It is a corporate ministry, and the focus is the people whom we serve. So hospitality is our privilege. It's not our task. It's not our duty. And of course, as we begin to share the good news through the medium of hospitality, God is the one who needs to receive the glory, not us. It's not for us to go bragging to people about how many people we have in our home. It's about God receiving the glory. I will say that hospitality takes work. It takes time. It costs money. It will require choices. It will require patience. If you aren't willing to work hard, if you're not willing to give generously of your time, if you won't spend any money on other people, then, well, you're just not a very hospitable person, I guess. So hospitality is not going to be your ministry, because hospitality really requires a level of generosity, a willingness to share in a number of ways with other people. And the sharing won't just take place during the few minutes that they're together with you. It is something that will be ongoing, or else it really isn't hospitality. So let me tell you a little bit about hospitality here in our home. My wife Rosalie and I have, over the last number of years, had the opportunity, really the thrill and the privilege of working particularly with students from other parts of the world who've moved to St. John, where we live. And so we have done a number of things. One of the things we've done is to provide transportation for people to come to our church on Sunday morning. So we have a number of drivers who are part of our church, and we organize that each Saturday so that we get a list of who the students are who need a drive to come to church, and then we team them up with drivers who will go and pick them up and bring them. And that's been an important opportunity. But one of the things we realized that we needed ways in which we could get to know these people better, and they could get to know us better. And so we began inviting people to our home. And I guess the first time we did this on a fairly large scale was back a few years ago. It was Easter, and we invited, I think we thought we would have maybe 15 or so people come to our home for a meal at Easter time. We also invited our pastor and his family. And I think when it was done, we had somewhere around 30 people who came. And we just had a marvelous time. We learned a lot from them. Some of the people were students who we were picking up and bringing to church. Some people were people that they invited. They were people who weren't Christians. They were people even of other faiths. But they came, and as we ate together, we had a wonderful opportunity to get to know each other. The great thing about eating is that all of us do it. It's not as if there's some humans who eat and some who do not. It's something that every person on this planet, no matter where they're from, no matter what their ethnicity, no matter what their background, their religion, it's something we all do. Now, we may have different customs. In fact, we may even have different religious rules that we follow, but nevertheless, we all eat. And so eating is something we share. And so as we invite people to our home, it's an opportunity for us to have something in common. It also provides an opportunity. So often, in fact, most commonly, we've invited people at times like Christmas or Easter, which gives, again, a very natural opportunity to talk to people who really don't understand what Christmas is all about, don't know the basics of the Christmas story, or the same with Easter time. It provides a marvelous opportunity simply to read through the Bible passage that talks about the birth of Jesus or talks about his death and resurrection, and then just to briefly explain it, not in a way that sounds like we're trying to proselytize or pressure people, but in fact, just to help people who've never really heard, to help them to understand what it's about. And again, I think sometimes we don't realize this. I remember a couple of years ago, again, I was organizing transportation, and so we had one young man who was a student at the university who asked to come on Good Friday to our service at our church. And so when I picked him up and had him in the car, he asked me, now, what is this service about? And so I explained to him that we were having a service that would just remind us of the fact that Jesus had died as our Savior. And he looked at me and said, Jesus died? I'd never heard that before. And again, it's a reminder to us to think that for many people, they really would like to have an opportunity to learn what Christmas is about, what Easter is about, but to do it in an atmosphere that is, I guess, without pressure, where they are comfortable with other people. And so we've continued to do that, and really it has grown through the years. We've had a number of gatherings in our home. The largest, I guess, one Easter a couple of years ago, we actually had 54 people show up. We weren't expecting that many, but people just kept coming in the door. And again, how this happens is, so I'll give you an example where 6 young men walked into our house. They were obviously not from around St. John. They were all from India, we found out, and so they were all Hindu. And I wasn't sure how they'd come to our home. We had never met them before, but they told us one of the other people we'd invited had seen them at Costco and just had said to them, "What are you doing for Easter?" And they said they had nothing, so she had invited them, and they all came. Similarly, one Christmas, it was actually Christmas afternoon, and we were getting ready for, we thought we were going to have probably around 30 people. And so it was a busy place. We cooked 2 turkeys. We had a number of casseroles. And it was about a half hour before people were supposed to start arriving when I got a phone call from a student who said, "I've got some other friends I'd like to invite. May I bring them?" And I said, "At this point, I can't get a drive for them. But I said, if you can get them here, we'll get them home." And so he arrived with 5 other people, 3 Hindu, 1 Sikh, and 1 Muslim. And again, there were people who came and were interested in finding out what exactly Christians believe about Christmas. So these are just such comfortable opportunities to explain to people about Jesus, about his coming, about what it means that he is our Savior. And if you're thinking, well, I don't think I'm up to doing this, maybe you're thinking I'm too old, or I don't think I'm used to this. I just want to mention one woman from our church. So Helen Breen, who has now passed away, but a few years ago, when she was in her mid to late 80s, I think, she called us and said, "I'd like you to invite all of the international students to come to my home for lunch." And of course, we said to her, "Oh, Helen, that'll be a lot of people." She said, "Just invite them." So I think we were maybe a little more selective, but 14 people end up going to her home, and she had ordered out pizza for them, and she had baked all week, so she had amazing desserts. But again, it was an opportunity for her to show hospitality, and really, she just shared her life with those people. They were with her for the afternoon, had an amazing time as they saw this woman who she had been one of the deacons in our church. She was just a wonderful Christian who just, I don't know, just shared Christ by her personality and through her hospitality. So I just encourage you to think about opportunities that might bring people who maybe are secular, just have no church background. Maybe they are your neighbors, you've never had them in your home, or maybe they're people from all over the world who've come here to Atlantic Canada, and it's opportunity to get to know them and help them to get to know you, so that you can talk very freely about your faith and about the difference that Jesus makes in your life. Now, let's talk about some particular elements of hospitality that I think are important. So again, if you're inviting people of other cultures, then it's important to have some cultural and religious awareness, especially if you're the people directly providing hospitality. And again, food will be key to any ministry of hospitality. Food is something we all share. It doesn't matter what a religious belief or a practice is. People will say to me, "Oh, you Christians, all you like to do is eat." And I say, well, as far as I know, everyone likes to eat. We just like to eat together. And I think that's a good missional way of thinking about hospitality. Don't minimize the significance of a shared meal. It was key in Jesus' ministry. It was key in the ministry of the early church. Now, food issues can be somewhat complex when you're dealing with people who are not from Western culture and people who are from different religious backgrounds. So again, it's thinking about how can I be sensitive about those things. So for example, at Christmas time, we normally make sure we have no pork products because we want people who are of other religions to feel comfortable that that's not going to be a problem. Oftentimes, when we invite people to our meal, the first question they'll ask me is, particularly, and I should say these are Muslims particularly, will say, "Will there be any alcohol?" That's one of their big concerns. And so again, to assure them that no, we will not be serving alcohol, because we will be sensitive to those types of concerns. Similarly with beef, we make sure that if we have beef on the table, and maybe a casserole or something, that it's clearly labeled. In fact, we actually clearly label everything. So we put little signs out with each of the dishes. We normally have about 20 hot dishes when we have a large crowd of people, and we put little signs up that say exactly what the ingredients are, so that if they have some cultural or religious reason for avoiding certain foods, then they will not be embarrassed, or we will not be embarrassed. One of the things we've discovered too is that there are some things that are easier than others. So again, fish is something that is very easy, sort of cross culturally and cross religiously, I guess. At Easter time, we do actually have ham always, but again, I always begin by explaining that that is something that's traditional at Easter time, and again, I say it's the only dish we have here that has any pork products on it, and it's clearly labeled for you. And it's, again, I would say it's not been a problem for anyone who's been here. I think it's important to realize and explain to other people who are interested in the ministry some of the cultural differences regarding time. So again, from different parts of the world, people might have different attitudes. So if you are going to pick people up to drive them, there's some cultures where they will be ready 15 minutes before you're there because that's their culture, to tell them that it would be rude for them to be late, that they are going to be waiting so that you don't have to wait for them. There are other cultures we've discovered from other parts of the world where they consider it rude to be waiting for you when you arrive. It sounds like they don't want to seem like they're being impatient. So they will not be waiting for you until you arrive, and then they'll get ready and come. So again, just to realize those are cultural things. It's not a matter of some people being punctual and some people not. Those are attitudes that are very much a part of their culture where they're seeking not to be rude. Some elements of hospitality as well, I guess. I would say have some cultural and religious awareness if you're directly involved. So again, no, you don't have to be an expert in other people's religion, whether it's people who are secular or people who have one of the other world religions, but at least know some of the basic beliefs of other religious groups or of secular people. We need to break down some stereotypes. Sometimes we have stereotypical understandings of other people's religious views, and it's important that we break those down before they arrive. I guess we've always tried to make sure that the guests are the majority in the room. I think it makes everyone at ease. So again, if you have a whole group of people from the church, you invite 2 or 3 other guests, they're going to feel like they're the target of your evangelism project. That's not hospitality. So make sure that the majority of people in the room are guests. If you have other people helping you, that's certainly fine, but make sure they don't outnumber the guests. I would say when you have a variety of people together in the room, it is a great opportunity to learn about one another's families, one another's cultures, one another's traditions, and one another's geography. We often pull out a map and look at places in the world where people have come from. But again, it's not a time to, if I can put it this way, waste time on small talk. Actually get to know one another. I think everyone feels much more comfortable when they can talk about their own lives and get to know the lives of other people. And I would say too, do not regard people or their foods or their dress as exotic. Again, treat people who may dress differently or think differently or eat differently, treat them as normal in your midst. Maybe think that you're the one that's exotic, not them. But again, don't sort of bring attention to things in their lives that are different to you. I think that there's some things that we can do to help our church for people who are going to be providing hospitality for people, just to help them to have some awareness. Again, just some gentle teaching about differences in different cultures around the world. Might be good to interview somebody from a different culture, perhaps in church sometime, just to give people a better understanding. So some elements of hospitality, I'd say, to close with. Certainly, again, as I've said, sharing meals and friendship. Again, it's not about the food, it's about the friendship that is offered over a meal. Sharing transportation. Again, students or people who are immigrants may not have easy access to transportation to things like church. So sharing transportation. Helping them to understand things about Canadian culture if they've come here from a different place. Sharing space. Maybe your church building can be used to share space with people. And finally, sharing in life's difficult moments. Sometimes hospitality gives an opportunity to get to know people so that when they are ill, when someone in their family has passed away, when they're facing difficulties, when they're homesick, there are ways in which we can reach out to them in love and just show them the love of Christ in those ways. I hope that you will consider the Ministry of Hospitality. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to share the good news of Jesus in these times when Our homes have become very private places, and in these times when so many people from other parts of the world are coming here to Canada, and we have opportunities to break down barriers so that we can get to know them and let them to get to know us, so that they can see the way in which Christ is at work in us. Again, I'm Steve McMullin from Acadia Divinity College. I appreciate this time to be with you. God bless you.